Welcome back, Left Reckoners. I'm Matt Leck. With me, as always, is David Griscom. Hello, David.
How's it going, brother?
It's going well. And joining us today is Alex Press. Alex is a staff writer at Jacobin covering labor. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So you have a new article in Jacobin on the website. Dollar General workers are fed up. Now, I'm trying to remember if Dollar General was, if I've been in a location with Dollar General, but just for folks who don't live in a location with a Dollar General, I mean, most of us have a shared understanding of what dollar stores are, but tell people what Dollar General is as a company, where its footprint is, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dollar store, self-explanatory, right? You can get various things slightly cheaper than at a grocery store. Dollar General has a particularly sort of hierarchical, centralized stock system. So local stores all carry the same thing. And Dollar General generally cites itself in particularly low income, underserved communities. I think a recent study was showing that Dollar General, about 30% of their customers make less than 25 grand a year. So these are really the poorest neighborhoods and cities, especially. But there are 18,000 Dollar Generals across the country. So it's a ton of stores. And I think their current employee number is 163,000 workers. So it's a huge company. Dollar General sort of has gotten some headlines recently because there are a lot of armed robberies in the stores, in part because the company really has very few workers in there. So there's just sort of, it's a sort of negligent company in a lot of ways, I would say is one way to put it, which is what the article was about as well.
Yeah, and just give us, you mentioned the article, just contrast the sort of state of Dollar General as a business, the executive level, how they're doing versus the workers. And you get into you mentioned about the armed robberies, the conditions for workers are horrible even by American standards.
Mm-hmm. So the average Dollar General employee makes about $18,000 a year, just above the U.S. poverty threshold. And, in a lot of cities, immense poverty to try to get by on 18 grand a year. But the CEO is currently making over $1 million. He got a 37% raise last year. So he's making about 986 times that of his average worker. Dollar General's done well during the pandemic. It's not like they're sort of in a crisis. If they gave workers, a few $100s of a COVID bonus, but otherwise, Dollar General, it pays badly even for its sector, right? And even compared to fast food companies. I said $18,000 a year. A recent study from the Economic Policy Institute found that 92% of Dollar General employees are making less than $15 an hour. 22% are making less than $10 an hour. So literally as little as you could pay a person legally, Dollar General is employing them at that level.
And then talk about the air conditioning stuff too. That part seems very bizarre to me. The sort of obstacle that sort of management is putting up for a work environment that is suitable to a human being, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's really shocking, right? I write about, say, Amazon warehouses all the time. I'm not surprised by poor working conditions, but when you start talking Dollar General, they often bring up how hot the stores are. So for that article you're referencing, I talked to this guy, David, who lives in New Orleans. That's where he works at a Dollar General. And the first thing he said when I asked him, I wanted to ask him, how much are you making? What are your complaints about the job? And he just went into this very detailed explanation about how he stays hydrated in his store. He was saying, I have 2 Powerades and a huge bottle of water. And, the heat is crazy. And I talk to management and they say, either the AC's on and I need to toughen up, or they don't care at all. And in the few days since I wrote that article, actually, all of the workers at a Dollar General in Oklahoma quit en masse over what they say was the temperature was over 90 degrees in the store every day. It doesn't make any sense unless you think of Dollar General as just fully having, treating their workers almost in an ungodly way, as completely non-human. It's no interest in investing money to keep a store, a livable working condition. And OSHA has cited Dollar General time and again, I think over 50 times in the past 5 years for hazardous working conditions. Obviously, OSHA's fines amount to almost nothing for a company like Dollar General. And so they're just continuing to ignore every problem in the store, which is what's leading workers to start speaking up to people like me, as well as, they held a big rally last week outside of the shareholders meeting in Tennessee, demanding some changes both to wages and working conditions.
And I mean, that's such a great action. Like it reminds me of, the miners in Alabama who've been showing up to New York to protest outside of BlackRock, like, I don't know, bringing the fight directly to Capitol. But it's not like Dollar General's been really struggling over the past few years, right?
No, not at all.
Those kind of improvements in place.
No, I mean, this is pure callousness, right? I mean, I think often a lot of us on the left, rightfully, we're thinking about, well, this company is prioritizing profits and they're going to do the minimum amount that they can as far as laying out money for labor costs. But at a certain degree, you have to start thinking about callousness, right? Like if this company is treating these workers and it's driving them to the breaking point, it almost goes beyond the economic rationale, right? This is now just undermining the company if people start speaking out about it. But they just truly, in organizing campaigns at Dollar General, just the organizers on the ground say the callousness and cruelty is just unbelievable at this company.
And
go ahead, David.
I just want to add, callousness to the workers and to the customers too. I mean, there's there's an understanding. I mean, if you're going into a store and it's like the only store in your area that you have to go to, and it's 95 degrees in there, that's pretty rough too. And it's like, I don't know, it's just like a perspective from Dollar General that, they have captured employees in a captured market and they can basically do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no sense that this is not a company that cares about the communities it's in either. It is there because it cites its stores into the lowest income parts of the country, and knows that those customers are trapped and will have to buy whatever they're selling.
And it extracts capital out of those communities too, right? Because if it's a big corporation, the profits are going to shareholders elsewhere, and then the people who are living in the community are getting paid $9 an hour.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's really like all the things that dollar stores. It really captures what they're symptomatic of and the ills of the system. We talk about certain places have food deserts and they don't have a nice grocery store. What that is also saying is there's probably a job desert there as well, and that. Places like Dollar General know that those workers are people that, because I worked at McDonald's. When you say the AC thing, I worked at McDonald's in high school. We lost the AC for one really hot day, and we didn't work that. Work was called off at my location. Wow. So there's a certain level, you can force these people into this environment, and that they would be saying, yeah, the AC's on. You just need to toughen up. That is, like you said, that's just. Disrespect and callousness, like you say.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing. Even the managers of these Dollar Generals are, they work. I feel like there was some study, I can't remember the exact date, but the managers at these Dollar Generals were working 70 hours a week. They are just, completely under immense pressure to keep the staffing low, keep the labor, pick up all the work themselves. And there's this woman, Mary Gundel, who recently got fired from Dollar General. She was a manager at a Dollar General, and she finally just started making talks that then went viral about how understaffed the store was. They also had a broken AC, and this got a lot of attention, and Dollar General's response was to fire her, and she was a manager. So these are, it's a brutal bottom line at this company, and just a complete, again, callousness and disrespect for everyone involved in making this company a massive profitable corporation.
Wow, yeah, I was just Googling that Dollar General TikTok. Maybe we'll play that on the show tonight. That is, I mean, because that is the thing that I love to see from certain social media platforms is occasionally it's all algorithmically, designed to cater to celebrity interest or whatever like that. But occasionally some genuine stuff will get through where it's people saying "fuck our boss," but okay, so let's talk about the where we go from here element of this. What's the state of union organizing with Dollar General? Could it, join up with what we're seeing at Starbucks and Amazon, for instance?
Yeah, so I mentioned that there was this rally outside of the shareholders meeting in Tennessee last week. And that was organized. There were something like $150 general workers, including the guy I talked to, David Williams, was there. Mary Gundel, the woman from the TikToks, was there. And there were other workers there in support, right? Amazon workers, fast food workers, Starbucks employees joined, as well as people like Reverend William Barber, who's, labor leader in the South. And this was coordinated with organizations like United for Respect, Fight for 15. So there is some level of momentum forming around the idea of a nationwide kind of pushback against Dollar General's working conditions. As people who listen to your show probably know, this is a moment where workers have a little more leverage, right? And that's what's been sort of influencing these organizing campaigns at the likes of Amazon and Starbucks. And so I do think Dollar General employees hope to similarly leverage their strength right now to push for, at least some improvements. As for union campaigns, there have been a couple efforts in recent years, and it's hard in a way that Starbucks is hard in that they employ very few people per store, actually far fewer than Starbucks. A Starbucks usually has like 25 employees. A Dollar General can have like 7 or 8 employees total. And so one of those small stores did vote to unionize in 2020, and the company just shut it down. They shuttered the store. That was in Missouri. In 2021, there was another effort to unionize a Dollar General in Connecticut, I believe with the UFCW. And the company retained a very prominent union-busting law firm called the Labor Relations Institute, paying those consultants almost $3,000 a day to stop the workers from supporting the union. And indeed, they won. So that did go to an NLRB vote, and Dollar General defeated the union campaign. I am not aware of any new ones that have been launched, in the past few months. But when you see this level of complaint and intolerable conditions, and certainly when you think about the fact that heating is such a problem and we're about to enter summer, I would not be surprised if, there are efforts. That I mentioned that store in Oklahoma, people quit en masse. That is not so different than people leaning the other way and saying, let's fight and try to organize a union. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes down the pipeline soon.
And it's interesting, just to circle back to what you said about all these Dollar Generals are short-staffed. Like that feels like something that's a reason to get into a union if you are feeling that pinch. Because I hear from a lot of people who work in retail that it's constantly you're covering like 3 different people's positions, and I mean that's. Like this is a moment of supposedly opportunity, like we say for workers, but also the screws are being put to them as well, and it's frustrating to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add in sort of closing here that one thing during the pandemic that really was hard to miss if you're talking to workers all the time and writing about strikes and organizing campaigns is that it wasn't just wages that were motivating people; it really was overwork. So some of the biggest strikes we saw, say at John Deere or especially in the food manufacturing industry, so Kellogg's and Nabisco, this was about workers who were working, 7 days a week and 12, 14-hour shifts per day. Employers are responding to a disinterest in, hiring new employees by just overworking the ones they have. And the sort of irony here is that experience pushes the workers together, right? Now you're spending all of your time with your coworkers and you're suffering together. And, I've spoken to a lot of Starbucks workers who similarly said that was part of the basis for their union was that they just spent the past 2 years together in a way that was way beyond what they used to spend. And so they grew closer and they started to trust each other and realized that they were the ones keeping the store afloat. So I do think that level of overwork can actually have these unintended consequences. And to be clear, Dollar General's entire model is about understaffing. They sort of are above and beyond. It's not just a pandemic thing. They always keep it a skeleton crew in their stores.
Right. Now, Alex, you have three other articles in the brand newly designed Jacobin magazine on this similar topic. Would you want to preview those for us? And I guess if you want, just give us your general thoughts about this overall movement we're seeing. Like we had you on Majority Report recently, and you did kind of pour a little bit of cold water on the triumphalism we're seeing, which I think was a little bit welcome. But I'm just curious, preview those articles, and I'm curious what you're seeing over the last month or so.
Yeah, I think I just have one article in that new issue of Jacobin, which is on labor union in Staten Island. And that is something, I've been writing about Amazon's working conditions for years. And it is a remarkably unexpected development that I am now writing about successful union campaigns there. And so, that article is about sort of tracing that campaign from its start to the present, which now the present is that they have lost one campaign at a smaller facility that's just across the street from that original warehouse. So they lost at LDJ 5 is what the place is called, and they won at JFK 8. And that's really, I think, one thing that people should watch is the sort of going forward. There's a lot of momentum and a lot of connections being made among Amazon workers now that aren't in unionized facilities and those that either have won a union or are working on it. I think that story is super important. I was talking to Chris Smalls, the head of the ALU, from just as soon as he got fired 2 years ago. And there was a sense that this is a guy who's really taking it very personally and is going to devote himself to organizing his coworkers. And so I think there are a lot of Chris Smalls at other Amazon warehouses who feel like, they're being denied their dignity and it's completely unacceptable. And so I would expect new efforts like that to emerge. I mean, as you said, I tend to pour cold water on things because I just know how bad it is for so many people and how many obstacles there are to a successful union campaign in the United States. But it is absolutely the case that there is energy, unlike anything I've seen in many years. People at companies where the odds are just immensely stacked against them still being willing to fight. Amazon, Starbucks being some of those companies, and maybe Dollar General would be another. And so I do think that we may see things pop up that previously, even just a year or two ago, seemed unthinkable. What are we going to see happen at Walmart? What are we going to see happen at companies like that? And it's funny, I'm talking to you guys as I'm helping coordinate get folks to the Labor Notes conference in Chicago in 2 weeks, which it just as a sort of symptomatic a measure to take the temperature. Usually Labor Notes has like 2,000 people attend. This year, I think they had to cap it at 6,000. They just immediately, everyone wanted to be there. No one wants to miss a chance to talk to workers in other industries that are unionizing or going on strike. And I do think that is, a rare sort of objective data point we can look at and say that there's so much energy right now. People want to change things. Certainly I hope that they can succeed in that.
I mean, I don't know about you, David, but I remember when we had Chris Smalls on TMBS, and that was very much, look at this underdog, let's support this. And to fast forward now to be like, oh, actually, this guy's the model of how you can do something like this, who has forced not even the squad to listen, but Joe Biden. I think I agree with you. That bit is extremely encouraging, and that we can actually have workers themselves directing this stuff is really excellent, and it's not a surprise to me. I saw him on Desus and Mero a week and a half ago, and it's this is the Desus and Mero interview that I won't just skip right over. But anyway, Alex Press, thank you so much for joining us today. What's your Twitter handle?
It's Alex N Press.
Alex N Press. You can find her work at Jacobin. Thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.